Welcome back to another episode of Lit and Bruised, an Atlanta literary podcast. I'm John Carroll.
And I'm Matt Benedictus. This might sound a little different than normal, but that's Chris Benoit playing live. Normally, lead guitarist monochrome sweatsuit of Chris Benoit. He plays the theme song Dankenstein that we use, but was it back in January?
February 1st.
February 1st. We had our first live event, Lit&Bruised Resolve, and Chris Benoit played and even did a live rendition, as you hear. That's very, very different, because they actually originally didn't think that song could be played live because it's got so many guitar loops, but it sounds really damn good.
It was interesting watching them play live just after hearing the song over the first season, and it was cool to see the audience's response to it. I got to be honest, I wasn't sure how that was going to work, because you're like, they got all these boards and all this equipment, and there's like 18 guys in the band, which that's obviously an exaggeration, but it was super rad. And like
18 people in sound.
Yeah, man, they were amazing, and everybody who I spoke to after the show just loved them, and they were great, man. It was a very different feel for a lit show. I loved it though. It was great.
Yeah, I think someone mentioned to me, like, I just wanted to soar high with them.
Yeah, you could definitely have like taken some drugs and just drifted off, you know. But they were really cool, and hey, good job. That was your call on that, and I was like, yeah, sure, man, that sounds great. But no, man, they were fun, and what an amazing show. And here we are at the end of our second season,
episode 30.
And I'm just sitting here scrolling through the website, looking at all the amazing guests. I mean, we kicked off this season with Jared Yates Sexton in a hotel room.
Yes.
And that was funny. That was just such a weird episode, just because we were in a hotel room and we had never done that before, but it was a powerful episode, and based on, things that he's been doing in the book that he wrote about, the Trump campaign and what that's done to America. And I mean, I can't believe that was, 2-3 months ago now at this point. Maybe was it longer?
We recorded that one in December.
Oh shit, was it December?
Yeah.
Oh wow. Wait, you're right. Oh my God. That's amazing.
Yeah, and that's actually the episode where we got our tagline that we end every episode with.
Yeah, don't die dumb. Don't die dumb. Yeah, well, I think we've literally had it in every episode. But yeah, it's cool. I just flipped by the episode with Rachel Maddox and Kay Powell. That was I think it's our longest episode to date.
It's close to it, I think.
Yeah,
that episode was really great. We sat down and we wanted to come up with a great nonfiction episode.
Yeah.
And I've been friends with Rachel Maddox for a while, and I knew she had been working on something. And I was like, come on the show. And we were having a really hard time finding someone that was like very perfect for it. And we were basically, through Laura Relier, introduced to Kay Powell, which was, I didn't expect that to be so fantastic. Kay's amazing. It
was really cool. And what's fun is, like, I feel like Kay is like a friend for life. She still emails us from time to time. She sent us like an email the other day about like some Johnny Cash stuff, and I was like, Kay, you know me so well. But I was even sitting here, I'm not going to go episode by episode, but I was just flipping back to the Molly Brodak episode, and she brought us treats.
Yes.
And were they Blondies?
Yes, they were.
That was cool. And then we had that weird email that came through yesterday with an old high school friend of mine from over 20 years ago. Found the podcast looking up stuff about the Great American Baking Show with Molly Brodak. So just a really cool season. I look back and I feel like every episode was just special in its own way.
And I'm really proud of this season because it really shows just how much art is coming out of Atlanta and how different it is. I mean, you look at Jamie Iredell, Nick Dukowski talking about Right Club, Gut Wrench Magazine. Everything was just so variant. Ryan J. and Nate Mast before they went on tour, and and that that comes in the slam poetry scene, and which actually I want to mention that a little bit. I actually went to my first full-on slam poetry event the other night.
I'm so jealous. I wanted to go. I saw all the aftermath on Facebook. So how was it?
It was great. It was basically it was a fundraiser for the 3 teams out of Atlanta are actually all going to nationals.
Okay.
So it was a fundraiser because it's really expensive to get everyone up to Chicago. And they kind of just competed. I mean, I've seen mostly everyone there. I've seen perform at like Java Monkey, or they performed at Right Club or something else, but I'd never seen the actual competition side. And it's so much of an iron sharpens iron. And it immediately made me think back to when I first started publishing in 2009.
Yeah.
The first book I ever put out by someone else was Jay Bradley, a poet from Florida who actually started in the slam scene, and people tried to discourage me from putting out his book because he was a slam poet.
Really?
Yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, because it was people were like, oh, the people won't take your journal seriously as a literature if you have slam poets. And I just was like, that's bullshit.
Yeah.
This is good poetry. It was weird. It was breaking new ground. It had an energy to it. Of course I'm going to put it out. And Jay Bradley is an awesome guy, and he's still putting out really, really good books. I highly recommend them. And it's like, why would you not support another side of the community?
Yeah, definitely seeing, I mean, slam poets have such energy and passion behind what they do. When I see them read, or if I'm ever reading with them, I am intimidated. And I'm not intimidated easily because I usually just don't care. But I watch them and I'm like, oh my God, they're so amazing. And I'm just going to get up there and tell a story. But they were up here like, you know, telling a story with their whole body,
yes.
You know, and raising their voices and their tone. And I don't know, it's a really beautiful thing. So it's cool to see, you know, the fiction and, you know, the lit scene that we've been a part of here, merging with the slam poetry scene. You know, like I think that was like one of the greatest things that ever happened to Atlanta literature, is the merging. And you know, that's the point of this show, is that we're going to merge more and just keep that rolling and getting people connected with others and exposing other people, the audience, everyone listening right now, to new writers and or old writers that maybe you've never heard of before, you know. So yeah. I think it's the coolest thing about what we do here with the show.
Oh yeah. I mean, and on top of that, we get to catch up with people that we generally have a hard time keeping up with because everyone's so busy.
Don't you feel like it's kind of selfish sometimes? Like you book these people and you're like, oh, cool, I get to hang out with this person for like 2 to 3 hours.
But it's not selfish because we're sharing it with everyone.
Exactly. It's totally true. But sometimes I'll like, you know, you see like a podcast with a cool guest. You're like, oh man, I wish I was interviewing them. I wish that was me, like having that conversation. But yeah, that's the cool thing about podcasting. You know, you get to sit down with really incredible people and just shoot the shit and find out what they've got going on and get to know them, you know. So and I mean, thankfully we know a lot of our guests already, but yeah, it's been fun to have a bunch of new people on. Like they come up to the apartment and it's like we've never met before, you know.
Yeah,
so.
Like Kay Powell.
Yeah,
neither of us had met her before.
Had you met Lisa Cross Smith before?
No, I had not.
That was I mean, obviously, if you listen to that episode, John, myself, I'm talking in third person now, I was just like losing my goddamn mind. But she was amazing, and she was so sweet. I loved how she just comes up to hang out with 2 guys in a 1-bedroom apartment like it's no big deal, you know. I mean, she was such a fun guest to have on the show. Showed up
with her family because they were on tour with her, which I thought was a very awesome way, because touring, anyone who has toured doing poetry or prose, just anything in literature, it's very it's grueling. I found it to be very depressing when I've done it. But so it's really about the people who are with you.
Yeah, definitely.
So the fact that her family was able to come out with her on the first part of her book tour was really great. Which that's another thing about that episode. She was the first non-Atlanta guest.
Yeah, definitely.
And that's something we will continue into next season. We're still an Atlanta-based podcast, so it's if someone's coming through Atlanta, we'll sit down and have a talk with them.
Yeah.
But it still fits in because like Lisa was here for like 4 days and read it, I think like 3 or 4 things.
Yeah, she was running the circuit that weekend. That was crazy. And I was bummed because I couldn't get out to the Get Lit reading because I was had my own event going on. But yeah, I think I would have followed her around. You know, I would have like gone to all those shows, especially after having her on the show. Another cool thing, we got a write-up in the AJC this season.
That is true.
That was really cool. Kurt from the AJC is a shout and asked to interview us, and we were included in a cool article about Atlanta literary podcasts with Literary Atlanta, which
with
is
Allison Law.
Yeah, and then we're going to be on her show. What, next Friday? You said?
Yeah, that will already have happened.
Yeah,
by the time this is out, but I'm sure we'll put something on the site of when it will air.
But if you're listening to this and you haven't listened to that one, go find it. It exists in the future, which will be your past.
Well, now I'm just really confused.
Yeah, I'm confused too. But
this is like the fourth Terminator film.
Yeah, I'm always kind of confused. What are you talking about? Well, one last thing I want to say. I mean, I know this whole episode's kind of the recap, but, I was just flipping through, and we had a delightful writer on one of our episodes, and I just really enjoyed the piece by Maddie Faye.
Yes.
That was the Gut Wrench episode.
Yes, it was.
That was, I wasn't familiar with Maddie, and I just found the work that she had created just amazing, and it was such a fun piece, and I want to go back and listen to it. Also, so if you haven't listened to that, go find the Gut Wrench episode and listen to Maddie Faye's story. It's beautiful, and it's like it's heartbreaking, and it's super fun, and the energy she brought, I just wasn't expecting that, and that was really cool. Up and coming writer, I believe.
Yes.
So check out the Maddie Faye piece.
Storytelling as well too.
Yeah, incredible writer. Really enjoyed that.
Which, John, looking back, I mean, we've now been doing this for has it even been a year?
It'll be, we'll hit a year in August. We'll be on hiatus. So, so 2 seasons and basically about 9 months.
Yeah. Like, when you look back on it, when we first started to kind of like build the idea, like, how do you feel looking back on it compared to now?
Like, have we executed on the vision? Is that kind of what you're meaning? I think so. I mean, I think the idea was to showcase Atlanta talent and to spread the word about them, and we wanted to do a live event, so we got one of those off the ground. And I mean, taking an idea from concept to full execution, I mean, we did that in under 2 months, and that was crazy. But it's cool because I feel like we have added to the community, and that was always our point, was to get more people involved and have more people, highlighted. And, we did a bunch of mini readings in my living room. I mean, that's pretty awesome. So, I don't know. What are your thoughts on it? I mean, you're the one who wrote up a lot of the vision. We definitely collaborated, but you really kind of set the tone and laid the groundwork for, what you saw this podcast to be. And I remember sitting there reading it being like, I agree 100% with all of this. I don't even
I don't
feel
even
like
remember what I wrote.
We had a bunch of conversations about it, and then you're like, I'll write something up, and I think I might have gone through and made a couple edits to it. But the vision and idea, which is on the website. Yeah. Go into the About section. So if you're not familiar with our mission statement, so to speak, check it out. It's pretty awesome and written by Matt. But I think it's cool. So,
well, one thing that I think we really have accomplished, and we're still even getting better at, is we really wanted to create a podcast where you get to know the writer.
Definitely,
you can sit down and have a very curated interview, but to actually speak with a writer and find out what makes them write without even always talking about writing. Like, I think about the Lisa Cross Smith episode where we ended up talking about malls and how they shape us. And then that turned into conversations about how she builds characters, or the episode with Nick Tukoski, which that was such a joy. One, I love hanging out with Nick.
Yeah.
Other is it is a topic that we ended up talking about extensively that is not really brought up most of the time in terms of literature, and especially performance, is the anxiety that comes when you read, and then how to cope with that anxiety. I mean, I've known many writers who they avoid reading because they can't take the anxiety that it brings them, or the fear or the dread or the feel of like your emotions feel depleted afterwards. So you actually get like a level of high depression after you're done.
Well, it's interesting talking to a bunch of writers who had never done a live reading before, and watching the anxiety that they have thinking about going to do that. And, I always just say, hey, the first one, it sucks. Like, it just, but it's the anticipation that sucks.
Yeah.
And then once you get up there, regardless of how good or bad you do, because like my first reading was awful, you get done and you're like, it may not hit you right away, and it took me like 9 months, but you're like, oh man, I want to do that again. It's like skydiving. You know, you're just like, oh man, the rush. Now, granted, I never want to go skydiving, but
I want to.
Oh god, that's terrifying.
Because I'm terrified of it. But that's just how it is with like reading.
Exactly.
I still get terrified whenever I have to get up on stage in any way.
Totally.
But I just know you got to face things. If I face it head on, it's gonna be fine, and I'm gonna be stronger for it. So why the fuck not?
Yeah. It's true, and it's funny to think that like after all these years, still having some anxiety getting up on stage, because I definitely do from time. You know what's weird? One of the first readings I ever participated in that I did not have anxiety was the Lit&Bruised Resolve episode.
Really?
And I don't know. I might have just been really medicated because I had just come off that really bad cold. Remember, I barely had my voice. I had no anxiety. I think I was just happy to feel remotely well after being sick for a week and losing my voice.
I think it was the music of Chris Benoit.
Chris Benoit, all the bourbon tea, all the hot toddies, and just I was just happy to be there, you know.
Yeah.
And the yellow couch, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, I love that we've added a new character to the podcast with the yellow couch this season. I feel like it was very much a sub character in season 1, and Nick Tukoski helped bring the yellow couch to fame and glory in season 2. So watch out for the yellow couch in season 3.
Yes, and if you missed out on the Resolve reading, which we did at the Highland Ballroom on February 1st, when we start season 3, there'll be another reading.
Yes,
there'll be another event. We're working on it. It'll be weird. It'll be strange, and it will be a lot of fun.
And the yellow couch will be there.
Yes, the yellow couch that has now been signed by a lot of people will be there as well, too.
I can't wait to get it signed by all the people from season 1 and earlier in season 2, invite them all to come out to the reading and sign the couch. This thing's going to look great. I've had people come into my living room now. They're like, well, why are there all these signatures on your couch? And I'm like, yes. Awesome. I'm like, yeah, this couch is very special. It looks like shit, but
you should tell it's like, if someone doesn't really know, just be like, it's UPS drivers. I got a thing.
Like when they drop off a package, I'm just like, hey, sign this right here. Well, it's cool.
Sign this. No, you sign this.
Yeah. And if they, if anyone on the show ever gets famous, I have their signature.
Yeah, I could cut it out and sell it.
Maybe one day I'll be able to sell the couch because everybody on there will be famous in some regard. That's our hope. The Atlanta literary scene will just become robust with famous writers. You know?
Just sell it and then put together a new project.
Yeah, we'll just do. We'll just buy a Lit&Bruised studio. Well, hey, you want to talk about the Resolve reading? Some?
Yes, let's talk about that. So when we tried to set up a reading, we didn't want to be totally like, oh, it's a live version of the podcast. We wanted to be themed in some kind of way, and we started to think about what are aspects of writers or a quality within writing that we find really compelling or is something shared between Atlanta writers. And we ended up landing on resolve. That's just that pure defiance to like, you have to get something done no matter what the result is.
And I think it was when we sat down and wrote up what that was, because I remember as we kicked around a handful of ideas. I can't even remember what the other ones, but I know when we landed on Resolve, it was like, this is it, and then we even played around with the tagline, and that was interesting because we couldn't get the tagline right, and you were going through some stuff, and your dog had passed away.
Yeah.
And I remember I was like, I feel like a dick, but we got to get this poster right. And I was like, hey, man, this is what I've got. And you're like, give me an hour. And then you came back with the perfect tagline for it, which finished our poster so we could get our marketing out online. But it was great, and just the lineup, that was our dream lineup for that show.
Yeah.
Like everyone that we wanted to be on that show and read for Resolve all said yes.
Yes. Gina Rikiki, Mike Jordan, Nick Tukoski, and Theresa Davis.
Yeah, man. I mean, that is just, I remember when we first had the idea a few months earlier, and we were sitting there talking, and we were playing with that lineup, and we came up with it. We're like, it'd be cool if we get like half these people here. And when they all signed on, I was like, man, we're onto something here. Because I think, we're friends with them and we get along, but I think also just I think the theme really spoke to them, and they all, they brought it, they brought the noise and the thunder. I think everybody there loved different writers and their pieces for different reasons. I think it really spoke to everybody at the show.
Yeah, and we're going to play 2 pieces from Resolve in this episode, and then we'll probably put the other ones on the website, and I think we might have some video as well, too. We did a whole lot of pictures and audio and video, so we had a whole lot to work with, so I'm sure when this airs, we'll have some more stuff on the website. But we're going to play Mike Jordan's amazing reading. He was reading, he had co-authored a book with the football player Takeo Spike. I'm sure I'm mispronouncing that, and I think he was a linebacker, I believe.
I remember that player. I think you got the name right. I think you might have done it.
Nice.
Yeah.
Finally.
Maybe.
30 episodes in.
I don't even know, but it sounds right.
But the book is called Behind the Mask, and you can check it out at behindthemaskbook.com. But it is a very, very fascinating section that he read about just the resolve that a football player has to go through, and not just the physical side, but the emotional, the social, and then also the racial component that can happen for a lot of players as well, too. So, enjoy.
This is actually, I co-wrote this book with Takeo Spikes. He's a retired NFL linebacker. He's now become a professional photographer, among other things. He's also went back to college and got his MBA. Brilliant guy. He's a testament to whatever your stereotypical idea of an NFL player, he is completely the opposite of that. He could have absolutely written this book by himself. He sent me something in the process after he hired me to write this book with him. He sent me something and said, hey, Mike, I'd love for you to read this letter that I'm sending to the NFL about their take on certain social justice issues. So I read it, and I was just like, shit, dude, like, you don't really need me. And then I used Boomerang, and I deleted that email that I sent to him because I'm like, oh, shit, I'm about to talk myself out of a check. So I'm very happy that he continued to have me there, but this book is called Takeo Spikes Presents Behind the Mask. We have Chuck Bednarik. We have a lot of the very popular and very historical, modern historical linebackers in the NFL. I've never really liked the NFL. So it was very interesting that I got to be a part of this book. It's brutal. They beat the shit out of each other. They run headfirst into each other. It's not my cup of tea. But writing this book, I got to see the resolve of the old school NFL players, the resolve that you have to have as an NFL player today to even want to play that game in a modern-day gladiator type of environment. So this seemed to be the right thing to do, and I did write it, so I qualified.
It does. Well, why don't you share it with everyone?
I will stand up and share. Check, check. Fuck it. The on-field achievements of Bobby Bell, a member of both the College and Pro Football Hall of Fame, career-long player for the Kansas City Chiefs, and Super Bowl winner, have been hard-earned. Time after time, the supremely gifted athlete found ways to prove his worthiness, and though the record shows that Bell's name deserves to be written and spoken along with the greatest football players who've ever lived, the Shelby, North Carolina native originally had a much simpler idea for what his life would be. He says his goal when he started was just to graduate from school, then get a house, get married, and get a full-time job. If you did that, you had it made, he says. And though it genuinely seems like Bell would have been fine with a life some consider average, what happened instead was a little bit of great achievement. From growing up in a neighborhood economically dependent on the local textile mill to becoming one of football's all-time greats, an ambassador for his hometown, a successful businessman, and a college graduate in his 7th decade of life, Bell admits he's done more than he ever imagined. If this sounds unbelievably humble, or maybe a sign of lacking confidence, It may be easier to understand when you know more about racial segregation he witnessed from childhood to adulthood. I'm also not, can y'all tell I'm tiptoeing? I'm a very short individual. I'm going to switch to the light. Oh. I was like doing this the whole time. Yes, it's a little embarrassing, but that'll work. Yeah. All right. So, when I grew up, if I applied for the job, you had to know somebody or be of a certain color. I guess I learned that the job that I apply for, I have to be 10 times better than the next person if he's white. Bell never wanted to separate himself from the world. The world was presented to him as a place where divisions were real, regardless of his feelings. It was the control of those feelings that fed his drive to succeed, not only for himself, but also for his father, Pink Lee Bell, who was and is a great influence. As I was growing up, around 12 or 13, I would see people playing golf, and I would ask my dad again, can I play golf like that? And my dad always said yes. At the time, though, blacks couldn't play golf. We didn't have our own parks. We didn't have swimming pools. But Dad always said, yeah, you can do that. Yeah, you can do that. That's where it started. Bell got involved in the local boys club right around the time a man named Clarence Palmer came to Shelby and built parks specifically for blacks, with baseball fields, swimming pools, boxing rings, and more. When the first swimming pool for blacks opened, Bell became a junior lifeguard. I was a young kid. I just wanted to experience and see what the outside world was like. And I had no idea I could be a football player or get a scholarship to a university. I was doing all these odd jobs, working weekends at a local barbecue restaurant called Red Bridges Barbecue, taking and delivering orders to cars. But I had my mind focused on the outside show. What's out there for Bobby Bell? While attending the all-black Cleveland High School, Bell worked at the country club owned by the people who owned the town's textile mill, cleaning the grounds and cutting grass. The owner's children liked him and would invite him into their homes to show off their yearbooks. Looking through the pages, he came to realize he was being exposed to something different than his friends knew, the knowledge that some people were somehow able to do different things than everyone else. I would go in and see all the sports they were involved with, and I thought, man, this is great. They were out of town, out of Shelby, and out of the state and going to school. My dad never finished school. I would go back home and talk to him saying, Dad, this sounds great. Do you think I would ever be able to do something like that? And my dad would say, yeah, you can do that. It's possible. He always said, if you're going to do something, make sure you do it all the way, 110%. I don't know how he came up with that instead of 100%, but that's what he always said, 110% or 120%. What Bell didn't yet understand was the underlying message his father was delivering. Though he was clearly embedding a work-hard philosophy in young Bobby's mind, he was also explaining to his son a world that was not always fair, particularly when it came to racial realities in the South. The message was that if something was worth doing, it was worth doing the right way every time the first time. Bell remembers he would say, whatever you do, give it your all, your best. You've got 3 strikes against you when you already go up to bat. You've got to make sure if you get a pitch, you knock it out of the ballpark every time. And it wasn't long before Bell began to notice differences on his own. It took a while for that to sink in, and at first I didn't realize it. Living on my street, all the kids would play together, black and white. But that's because we were young. We were treated differently than the whites. In Shelby, you couldn't eat in the restaurants or go to the movies. Or if you did, you had to go upstairs through the back door behind the projector. One time when I was 13 years old, we all decided to see a movie together at the same time, the white kids and the black kids. I ran home to tell my mother, and she said, you can't go with them. Because at that time, it was like, this is your place. This is what you do. You didn't cross the lines. This was the time I was like, oh. And that's when I started reading books and realizing it's different out there than what's in Shelby. I didn't understand when I was young why I was getting mistreated. I was a young man just like they were. Why is it different? Again, Bell's father provided guidance, explaining the need to take advantage of good situations rather than dwell on the negatives, insisting that if Bobby wanted to compete with people around the world and not just in Shelby, he had to be on a level playing field and still be better, 10 times better. And what that meant was that I had to go out and project it. I had to go to the same schools with everybody else. That's what he instilled in me. I had to give it everything. And if someone gave me the opportunity to do something and I didn't take it, someone else would. These conversations led Bell to making a commitment to his father that he would leave Shelby and attend a good college or university. His mind was set on being a basketball player since he had the gifts of height and speed. However, he began to show aptitude in other sports, including football and baseball, in his senior year of high school. He even came close to being drafted by the Chicago White Sox, and scouts came to his area, and someone suggested they have a look at this team. When the people came down to look at me play baseball and assign me to a farm, I told my dad I was going to go play baseball, and he said, "Wait a minute. I thought you wanted to go to a big school and stuff, play basketball in college. I thought you wanted that experience." And I said, "Well, I can help the family if I can go make some money playing baseball." And he said, "Well, we don't need any help. We're all right." And I told him, "Well, I can always go back." And he said to me, "I don't think you would do it." He left it to me, and I made the decision that I wanted the college experience. And though naysayers tried to convince him to change his mind, advising him he'd become just another number and would never make it, he accepted a football scholarship to the University of Minnesota, where he learned to adapt to his environment and outwork his competitors. I had to make adjustments. Only 10% of the population in the state of Minnesota was black, 10%. There weren't that many black students at the university, and I had to overcome the relations thing. I had to learn to talk to white people. I had to promise my dad that if I had a scholarship, I would go on to get my degree. I didn't want to go home. Bell exceeded, and he excelled completely during his college years. He helped the University of Minnesota Gophers win a national championship in 1960, was named an All-American in 1961 and 62. The same year he received the Outland Trophy. His performance as a lineman, he was even a walk-on for their basketball team, becoming the first African-American basketball player in the school's history. Still, Bell wasn't chasing a career in football. He had reminded himself and remained inspired by the impact that Shelby Parks had on his life. And he simply wanted to give back the same way. That's what I went to school to be. I didn't go to school to be a football player in the NFL. I didn't even think I could play football. I went to school to get my degree, to go back so I could do the same thing Mr. Palmer did. Bell was drafted by the Chiefs before graduating, which may have put off his goal of fulfilling that promise to his father, but it did not deter him from working harder than ever towards his goals. And even as a known player, he worked full-time for General Motors' Labor Relations Department. I took my vacation during training camp. People said, "What the hell are you doing? I thought you played football." And I said, "That's my second job." Considering all of his gridiron accolades, you'd have assumed that, had he continued his career at GM, he'd probably be the CEO by now. But this is the American dream, albeit one that is more honest than the television camera sometimes showed, because Bell's All-American story has included good and bad narratives, tales of a country on the cusp of the civil rights struggle that defined the times of Bell's athletic heyday. He was involved in a boycott of the 1965 All-Star Game due to a less than hospitable welcome by the host city, New Orleans, whose officials made promises that were unkept upon the arrival of the team's black players. The NFL told city government, "Hey, you got to do some different things. Black players have got to be able to stay in the same hotels, eat in the same restaurants, and all that. You got to do this." And New Orleans said, "Okay, we'll make the arrangements." And they agreed to do it, but when we flew in there, it wasn't like that. They did let us check in the hotel room on Bourbon Street, but when I went down to the restaurant and I waited, and finally a black lady came out of the kitchen and said, "Hey, I'll serve you, and you can order stuff, but you got to take it to your room." I said, "I can't eat it here?" And she said, "No, you can't eat it here." So I go upstairs and tell the guys, "Hey, man, I don't advocate this stuff going on downstairs. I don't want to play here. And if that's the way it is, all the black players got together and we talked and we chose not to play. And the commissioner went on and moved it to Houston. So through his position on the field, and it called for constant physical confrontation, Bell played the role of a peacekeeper, many times personally going into the streets to calm crowds and to quell violence after Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated in 1968. He doesn't forget moving to Kansas City and being told that some restaurants wouldn't serve him, but he also couldn't live in parts of town. I think I was one of the only, or at least the first blacks, to move into Overland Park in 1967 and 68. They didn't want to sell you a house. And the problems don't just go away, they're still there. Back then, you had people who were narrow-minded. To them, everything was A-okay. You could walk into a restaurant, eat, go where you wanted to go. You didn't have to go into a colored bathroom instead of a white bathroom. But see, for me, things weren't that way. Down south, you had colored bathrooms, colored water fountains. We couldn't even drink out of the same water fountains when I was growing up, and I was born here. I was like, wait a minute, is this the world? And talk about immigrants coming into this country, coming across the border. I was born here. I'm a citizen. And though he's still unsettled by what he sees as lingering issues of inequality, Bell has also reminded himself to savor the good times. While he could call out his college championship, Super Bowl victory, or All-Star selections as the greatest moments of his career, there are two others that stand apart, and both include his father. The first, which he has called the top of the pyramid, was when he went back and finished his college degree at 74 years old. I looked at the wall in my man cave one day, and I had all these awards and stuff, but I thought to myself, wait a minute, I promised my dad I'd get a degree, and that's what I did, and it's the best thing I ever did. The other highlight was having his father see him play live in what would end up being University of Minnesota's national championship game against Wisconsin. It was the first time Pink Lee Bell had the opportunity to see his son Bobby play a big school, and it was in front of 60,000 others. And we talked about me going to a big school, and here he was, and his son playing in a big game, and he thought the world of that. Unfortunately, I cracked 3 ribs before halftime. And an injury that should have taken me out of the game, when I went to the locker room and they had me laying on the table, Dad walked in wearing his smooth coat, and he talked to the trainer, and the trainer came back and said, yeah, he'll play. It'll just be some pain. We were going to tape him up anyway. And he looked at me and said, look, boy, I didn't come all this way to see you laying up on this goddamn table. And I said, yes, sir. And I went out after halftime. And I sat on that bench for the first play, and I looked over my shoulder at the seats behind me, and I saw my dad sitting there, and I said, oh, crap. So without even thinking, without saying anything, and no one knew, the coaches or the players, I ran out on that field during halftime. And he told one of the tackles, hey, you're out, and I'm in. And the player replied, hey, man, aren't you hurt? And my answer was, man, you're out. You're out. And I played the rest of the game with some cracked ribs. And I had to play. He's there, and I'm not playing. Come on, that was the highlight of my career. And I know I've played in a couple of Super Bowls and stuff, but that was the highlight. He would walk out on the streets of Shelby, and people, white and black, would holler to him, hey, Pink, I saw your son on TV last night in the game. He was great, man. And then it was like, he's one of us now. It's like the whole town took me under its wings. That was the change, and it was because I want to think I did the right thing.
Wow, that piece is great.
Yeah, it was really interesting at the show because one thing which I found really amusing was I didn't realize how long it was, and I was sitting there and I was like, it seems like it's going a while.
And for those that weren't there, when John says sitting there, we were sitting on stage. We were sitting on the couches on stage. We would interview everyone before they would go read. So while they're reading, we're just sitting on the yellow couch, sipping our drinks.
And we really couldn't speak amongst ourselves because it'd be distracting. And so in my mind, I'm thinking, I want to ask Matt how long this piece is. And but it was, the cool thing about it is a lot of times when you're at a reading and someone's going long, and maybe you're not into the piece, you really notice that it's going long. And that night, just as a co-host of the show, I was just kind of thinking about time in general. But the piece was super engaging, and it was just really cool because I didn't know that about Mike. And really,
you could have dropped a pin in that room. It was fantastic.
It was interesting to watch the crowd too, because I feel like at first they were just listening, and then as towards the end of it, they really really started showing more emotion about it. You know, as he was kind of hitting on some of the harder lines about this player and what he's gone through. And I think the other side of it too, Matt, and I don't notice it very much, is you don't see a whole lot of sports writing coming out of Atlanta. So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah. I mean, and I like it when literature gets into sports. It's always kind of fascinating where it takes. Like, actually, I got you a chapbook recently.
You did?
Yes, that had Gina Myers, formerly from Atlanta, now lives in Philly. She's in there. Molly Brodak had a piece in there.
Yeah.
I think hers was about Scottie Pippen, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was all about basketball, wasn't it?
Yeah, everything was about basketball.
I've got it. I ordered so many books recently. I've got it around here. I read about half of it. And and for those of you who might be new to this show and haven't heard me ramble on about playing basketball in Kentucky growing up, that was always my sport. I probably shouldn't have played it. I willed myself to be decent at it. Mm-hmm. But it's just really cool just to see people writing about it, and especially writers that you don't necessarily think are going to write about sports. You know, I've read Bill Simmons and other sports writers who write about basketball. You know, but that's what they do. You know, like to see them write some sort of fiction piece would be weird for them. So I don't know. I love it. It's fun to see different people writing different pieces about sports, and especially that chapbook. I mean, that chapbook's really cool. I mean, like, just to read, like,
I'll put on the blog which one it is.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, just to see like a piece that like Molly Brodak wrote about basketball. Like, I wouldn't really think that she would be one to write about a sport, you know. And so just to get her perception on sports that's just super interesting to me.
Yeah,
you know?
It's just a nice way to take, because it's like when you come at a sport from like within the frame of poetry, you have to come at it from a different emotion than just basically the testosterone side and the winning and losing side. You have to dig kind of deeper, so you get kind of a bigger aspect of what all is so engaging about it all.
You know, I was talking to my dad. My dad was a big encourager of me playing basketball because he went to University of Kentucky. And I was talking about sports today, and we were just talking about the things that you learn playing sports as a kid. And it's, you know, it sounds cheesy, but it is true. Like, you learn about teamwork and like running a strategy and things like that. And you know, I think that high school sports and college sports are blown out of proportion in terms of like money and focus and people getting fanatical about it. But I think for just fun, especially at the level that I was playing at, like, nobody I was playing with was going to go play college basketball, you know? So I just thought it was, for me, I'm glad that it never got too crazy because I wasn't that good. But it was fun, you know, and I look back on it with fond memories. And so, anyway, really cool piece by Mike Jordan from the Books Beats Booze.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
I learned from sports in high school was you can steal whatever you want from the visiting team's locker room because they don't know.
The other thing is, if you're a basketball player or whatever big sport is at your school, you do get special treatment. And I look back on that and I was like, man, that's some bullshit, man. Like, I didn't do anything crazy, but every once in a while I'd get like a pass out of detention or something like that. I always got to go to basketball practice. And like at the time you're like, oh, that's awesome. But then like looking back on it, I'm like, man, that's pretty shitty to like all the other people that were there just serving their time just like me for doing something as equally or less detention worthy. But yeah, man, fuck the opposing team.
Yeah.
I want to write a story about that.
That'd be a good story.
Fuck the opposing team. So we've got some news we want to tell people, right?
Yes, we do. We in conjunction with the 500, we are going to be putting a book out about Atlanta.
Yeah, it is called Atlanta: All Kinds of Truth. Did I get that right?
Yes.
We had a few working titles, and I believe that's the one we settled on, which is a
Flannery O'Connor quote.
Exactly. I'm glad you said that because for like 2 seconds, like her name was not in my brain,
just floating around. In the
atmosphere.
I
was like, what is her name? And then you're like, it's Flannery O'Connor quote. So we're putting that together right now with some amazing Atlanta writers. Matt, you want to go down the list with some of the people we've received stories from?
Mike Jordan, for one.
Yeah.
Tom Cheshire. Let's see who else we got, because I'm literally opening up a doc here on this. Jack Walsh, Floyd Hall, Gina Rikiki, Benjamin Carr, Elena Huff Tucker, John Carr. Like, there's even more. And then it's not just writing, it's also there's a visual component that will be for the book. John, can you
Yeah, definitely. So we haven't signed all of our artists on right now, just because we're just going through the process of going through each of the stories, making sure they're exactly the way that the writers want them. And then but we have signed a few, and I know we've signed Shaniqua Gay, and we've signed Leela Brunette and Pam Peacock. So we've got a short list of artists right now that are all from Atlanta. And that's the cool thing. All the stories are from Atlanta writers, and all the artists are here in Atlanta as well. And so it's going to be really special. So we're looking at a fall release of that.
Yeah. And to kind of just give a little more context to it, the whole concept of the book is artists and the writers and the visual artists will work together to basically visualize the writing piece. And because we really want to showcase how many sides there are to Atlanta. It is not, you can't just say Atlanta is one thing. So we want to really just create a medium to explore the many truths that we have within this city.
Yeah, and the other component of it that I think is really cool is that we're also going to donate the proceeds to charity.
Yes.
So after we hit our budget and recoup on that, we're going to give all the money, and then the artists and the writers will also be picking the charities that we donate to. So we're working hard on that. That's what we're going to be spending our off season doing this summer. We're making some headway there.
Yeah. I mean, on top of working on that in off season, we should probably clarify that we'll be back in the fall for season 3 of Lit and Bruised. And we don't have any guests for sure lined up. We've been talking to a couple people, but we're also making some plans to do some interesting things for season 3. I know we won't be a part of Decatur Book Festival, but we might be recording near it. So
it'll be like the Renegades. Like, they won't let us in, but we'll be watching from afar.
Yeah, we'll be in the forbidden zone.
Man, that'll be crazy. I mean, that weekend is so insane because that's the same weekend as Dragon Con. So
yeah. So we'll probably be recording from my house in Decatur because I don't think we're going to be able to get people all the way over here to the Highlands.
Yeah, that'll be tough. Now, we had talked about it a little bit. Was that going to be one that we actually do a complete live stream of?
We might. We might.
I know we have that feature.
Yeah. So we're trying to experiment with some stuff.
Yeah, that'll be fun. And we're going to come back with our a lovely Halloween episode.
Yeah, we'll definitely have that again.
I think that's might be some of our listeners' favorites, and definitely one of our top favorite episodes to do for Lit and Bruised. So yeah, we'll be coming out with that. We know we have that one in stone.
Yes.
So
as well as there'll be another live event. We're working hard on that, and it's going to be, I think, grimy. I think
we got to
kind of feel we're going for.
We got to get we're going to go deeper on it.
Yeah.
Get it more in depth. I mean, it was definitely fun at the Highland Ballroom. Never counting that out, as it's a great venue for literary events, but definitely going to try to change some things up and make our event, different and more experiential than the last one.
If we can find a writer who also does fire breathing,
that is awesome.
Someone needs to get on that.
I want like dirt bikes and stuff. I want it to be like the X Games of the literary scene, like people doing like big jumps and stuff like on skateboards and bikes, and have people like parachute in. Probably won't be able to do any of that stuff, but maybe a fire breather, blower. Yeah. What do they call them?
I just realized I know like 3 people that do that.
I remember hardcore bands back in like the late 90s, early 2000s used to do that. Like they'd go on stage and was that like Dillinger Escape Plan? Yeah, they'd blow fire.
Their second singer.
Dude, I'm sure we can do this, especially with like all the different talented people, because I know I've seen some weird stuff in Atlanta. I saw a sword swallower at like a Scene Missing, I swear. Like, that's possible. Yeah, if it wasn't Scene Missing, it might have been like one of those Hyde shows that Jane O'Connor used to do. Yeah, one of the ones that were done at in like on Edgewood. Yeah, those were crazy, man. Yeah, that was like it was like going to like a weird carnival. Yeah, see like drag queens and fire or sword swallowers. Sword swallowers or fire breathers. We got to have at least one. Something. We'll work it in there somehow. Yeah. And if anyone has any crazy ideas,
shoot it our way, because
yeah, definitely.
Anything that kind of gets a little weird, we're usually into.
Hey, best idea wins, right?
Yeah.
Like this is not a dictatorship, definitely a democracy. So if you've got the best idea, just
it's
let
best
us know.
idea, and then the struggle to actually implement it.
Yeah, exactly.
And then whatever relatively works. Because I always think back to when I published with Safety Third Enterprises, XTX's He Is Talking to the Fat Lady.
Yeah.
The original first idea was to have the chapbook wrapped up in a wrapper, like a Burger King burger wrapper. And I actually priced out to get like the Safety Third logo put on that. And then how could you make a fake grease that wouldn't stain the paper? Spent 2 whole months on that, researching, testing things out, figuring what would work, and then just went with a really nice chapbook.
Yeah, that was a really nice chapbook. I remember that. I mean, I like the wrapper idea though, and that was the fun thing about Safety Third. You'd always include like weird stuff. I remember getting like hip hop baseball cards and like pieces of bubble gum or something. I felt like I was opening up like a pack of like Topps baseball cards.
It was all about making things feel like a gift.
Yeah, man, it was awesome. I mean, God, when we did the slow burn, I remember did Jennifer like wrap them all up, and then we had the patches. We had the Kentucky patches.
Yeah,
she
she wrapped. My wife, she super crafty and awesome. Like she wrapped all the books up to really have that book like gift feel. Like you had to unwrap it. You had to take a piece of twine and undo the twine.
Yeah,
like you wanted to like. The goal, and it was accomplished, was to make it so you didn't just like tore into the book. Like it was a process. Like you wanted to sit down and slowly open it.
Yeah, that's like the worst gift anybody ever got was slow burn. It's like, sorry I got you this, but hope you like it. You know, the funny thing about slow burn was that I sent a copy of it to my mother. And I called her. I sent her like a text, and I was like, "Hey, Mom, did you like the book?" And she didn't respond. And then I called her and left her a message. Nothing. A couple weeks later, I call her, finally get her on the phone. I was like, "Hey, Mom, I was just checking in with you. I sent you my book. Wanted to see what you thought." And she was just like, "Well, I liked it, but I didn't realize you were so sad." And I was like, "Wow, thanks, Mom."
I guess that's better than a GIF.
Yeah. It was something, but whatever.
Like if she would have just sent you a facepalm GIF.
Yeah, it's like, oh God, or just like a GIF of like Michael Scott shaking his head, like, oh God, But anyway, Safety Third was amazing. Definitely appreciate everything that you did over there. That was
thank you. You helped with a lot.
Hey, I tried, but hey, we're gonna make this ATL book super duper special as well. So lots of cool things to look out for. Season 3 of Lit and Bruised and ATL, Atlanta, All Kinds of Truth.
Well, before we go, we're going to play one more section from Resolve. Theresa Davis's.
Man, this piece is so good.
Yeah. Actually, when I asked Theresa to make sure it was okay to play it, I loved it. To recall the piece, she was like, "I don't suffer fools," which she does say in it. And it's just like, I love that. I don't even know the name of the piece, but I think that should be the name.
Yeah, I don't suffer fools. Yeah, that was really powerful, and she got deep and was very vulnerable with it.
Yes.
I'm super glad that we actually have video of it as well.
Yes.
And we just previewed the video before the show, and we're just checking it out, and it looks beautiful, and we'll get that online here eventually. So look out for that as well.
But please listen to this amazing piece. You might be working out, driving. It's a lot to take.
Yeah.
It's intense. I mean, as Theresa Davis said, this was some new shit that she had been wanting to write about for some time. The difference between a sperm donor and her father, what the difference is, and shit gets kind of rough and raw. So once that's over, we're not going to be coming back. We'll be coming back in the fall.
Yeah. Season 3, baby.
And I guess thanks everybody for listening.
Thank you all so much. We look forward to talking at you in season 3.
Enjoy Theresa Davis.
Don't die dumb.
So, yeah. Resolve. Okay, wait. I'm a professional. Let me adjust the motherfucking mic. let's do this. All right, there we go. Don't need the glasses to read, just to see. All right. Some of you have heard me speak proudly about my dad from time to time. I tend to wax poetic because the impact he had on my life was huge. The man who captured my mother's heart, snatched us up as his own treasure. Technically, he's my stepfather, a term I take issue with, so I arrange it differently in my head. He is the man who stepped in and did what the donor didn't. Even though I do not share my father's DNA, my organized mind knows that DNA does not equal family all the time, and he was family. My mother knows this. My stepfather knew this. My sperm donor, however, never learned this, and as of today, has not expressed the desire to do so, but then again, how would I know? I haven't talked to that asshole for nearly a decade. When I was 9, I noticed a pattern with the sperm donor. He would take us to visit his mother, the woman he chose to name me after, but we never actually entered the house that spring. We were sequestered to the yard to play. In the yard, there was a table adorned with fried bologna sandwiches and tragic unsweetened iced tea. And in the yard with us was this kid who we had no idea who he was or what he was about. He was just there. We had a designated bathroom, not in the house, but in the basement. On the third visit to the yard, I had to go potty, but there was no toilet paper. So I ventured into the house, found an extra roll of toilet paper, but since I was in the bathroom, I decided to go because it didn't make sense to leave a bathroom to go to a bathroom. I heard sounds that startled me, so I locked the door and I lingered. Once it got quiet again, I unlocked the door, roll of toilet paper in hand, and there is a naked donor and a naked woman I do not know, but because of her feature, I figure she belongs to this kid that we do not know. I stare as he shoves her back into my grandmother's bedroom. He demands I go back outside to play. This is one of the 2 only vivid childhood memories I have of my biological father. When we leave, the donor attempts a speech, some lame excuse and explanation of who the woman and who her son is, and suggests I don't tell my mother. But I can't see what I saw. And don't tell your mother sets off alarms in my head, so, of course, I tell my mother. She confronts him. This is the only other vivid childhood memory I have of my biological father. He balls up his fists, punches her in the face. My sister screams. He then laces his hands around my mother's throat and in front of us tries to put her head through a wall covered in glass. This is the first time he has laid hands on her in front of us. And maybe that's the thing that snatches her brain. She sees us seeing this scene and realizes this lesson is being potentially transferred. I could see it in her eyes. This will be the day she leaves him. Immediately, I start moving. I push my younger sibs out of harm's way, yell at my brother, call the police. I find the biggest knife I can find, launch my spider monkey self across his back, press a knife to his throat, shout, "Do not hit her again." I am 9. The biggest knife was my mission. What I held was a bread knife. I am sure he knew I could not cause real damage with it, but he could see my eyes in the fractured mirror of the wall he was trying to force my mother's head through. Maybe he felt my intent, or maybe it was the way he looked me in the eyes that shook him. He released her, and we all wanted to leave that tainted space. I never lifted the pressure of the knife held to his throat. He never tried to shake me off. The police came. Me still holding a knife to my sperm donor's throat. They didn't shoot me like they might have if it happened today because I am here. But they did take him away. We gathered around my mother, got ice for her bruises, cleaned up the glass, and had a family meetings. My sibs and I learned a few new phrases that night. We learned domestic violence. We learned restraining order. We learned divorce. The donor never stepped foot in that house again. And the next year, my mother would meet a man who loved us without lies or fists, and we learned new words like domestic bliss and Atlanta. When we left St. Louis, my mother was forced to face the man that refused to pay child support and took issue with her moving so far away, taking his children with her. He forgot he couldn't bully her anymore, so he tried casting spells. The last words he said to my mother in front of us was, "Everything you touch will fail." In my head, that was us. This man who claimed to be a messenger of God, who took his children to his affairs, who insisted through court proceedings that all of us are forced to spend the summer with him, yet refused to pay child support and provide health insurance, proclaimed his children's failures because they were constantly in the loving arms of their mother, a place he was no longer welcomed. And in Atlanta, my mother would soon teach me a lesson that encompasses every single definition of the word resolve. I don't suffer fools. This is a phrase my mother says often. The first time I heard it was when she was when one of her sisters was trying to get her to take legal actions to garnish the donor's wages. She refused the advice with the comment, "They will get what they need one way or the other. Eventually, they will get every dime," she assured her disbelieving sister. I, personally, hated spending summers in the concrete heat hell that was St. Louis, Missouri in June and July. What I loved about the forced visit was my mother's approach to the issue of child support. I didn't get it or love it right away. It took me years to ask the questions of why we were forced to go. She answered, "Because I don't suffer fools." Okay. But why we gotta go with no luggage, hair a hot mess, no toothbrush, raggedy clothes, worn out shoes, sack lunches, and nothing to do for the long-ass bus ride? She simply smiled again, saying, "It's because I don't suffer fools, Theresa." Sensing my irritation, knowing my temper, she said, all right, sit down. I'm gonna tell you the real deal. It was the 70s, y'all. That's how they talked. The real deal. So, she started. Your biological father has refused to pay child support for years because of his arrogance and pride. And because he is arrogant and prideful, I know he plans to parade you at church on Sunday to fulfill and ensure all the other deacons that he owns his role of doting father. This is why I always make sure you arrive on Friday afternoon looking a hot mess, as you call it. This gives his arrogant ass time to shop for 4 children for the whole summer. You spend 5 weeks with him. Will he allow his children to show up in church for 5 weeks wearing the same 5 dresses, slacks, and shirts? No, he will not. His pride can't allow it. If he does, who's going to tell him what a great father he is with his sharply dressed kids if they're wearing the same outfit more than once? We let his boys wear their glasses all paper clipped together. No, he will not. Eye exams and new prescriptions and new glasses just like that. We allow unkempt hair, God forbid. So there's a salon hairdo in store for you and your sister and fresh haircuts for your brothers. You have to look good, smell good. It's the only way he can be a good father. These are all the things he will have to do between Friday afternoon and Saturday evening, including feeding you, because I always make sure you arrive hungry. She pinches my cheek. When he has to provide for the 4 of you for 5 weeks, that is 3 times as much as the child support he refuses to pay. See, you can always part a fool from his money, especially if the fool thinks he is being generous when he is actually paying off his selfish debts. And there's a bonus, though, because he also has to buy luggage and the tickets to send you back home, even as he tries to justify keeping clothes you won't be able to wear next summer. He doesn't want you to see him as selfish, especially you, Theresa, wielder of knives. He believes he is giving the gift he owes you. I know my ways. I know you may think my tactics might be strange, but it galls me that he wants to take credit for all your shine without putting in any work. It is my belief that at the very least, he should invest in all of you. If he's going to try to claim your brilliance, This sweet girl is the only way I know how to hold him accountable. If it embarrasses you to ride the bus like that, I apologize. Just know, you don't know those people, and they don't know you. She points at my heart. Besides, you will probably never see their asses again. I am proud she trusts me with her master plan. I say, I think you might be a genius. Right back at you, she retorts. A kiss on my pinched cheek as she rises to start dinner. And I think of the four of us now. Younger brother, musician, responsible for the sounds on your video games. Younger sister, educator, specializing in special needs. Other not-so-younger brother, former commissioner of juvenile justice for the state of Kentucky, youth advocate, poet, and me, still on point to hold a knife to the throat of anyone who threatens my mom's safety or those I love, and, well, I do other shit. Not a failure in the pile. But after she explained the why, I kind of got into the hot mess outfit night ride bus thing. In fact, that summer, I squinted a lot. Got myself a prescription for a new pair of glasses, and they were dynamite! Y'all, it was the 70s. That's just how we talked. Thank you.
Need the medicine.
Yo, let's give it up for all the readers tonight.
Let's give it up to Chris Benoit for opening the evening.
Benoit. And also Mike Johns and Wes Cummings. Sound and photography and video. Let's do it.